What if chasing the perfect body didn't just cost a man his health, his career, or his freedom, but his life at 29, after he'd already built a $2 million empire by literally showing the world how he injected steroids on camera? This is the story of Bostin Loyd, the kid who grew up posing on bodybuilding stages at 6 years old, the rebel who blew up online by exposing the sport's steroid secrets, the entrepreneur who turned radical honesty into a business empire, and the young father whose kidneys and heart finally gave out after years of pushing every chemical limit he could find. He wasn't the biggest guy to ever step on stage. He never turned IFBB pro, and yet everyone in hardcore bodybuilding knew his name, his cycles, and his infamous motto, "Get big or die trying." This isn't just a fitness story. It's a blueprint of how a cult hero is made, how an industry looks the other way, and how the bill always comes due. Bostin didn't just appear out of nowhere. He was literally born into the iron game. Both of his parents, John and Marie, were competitive bodybuilders who owned a hardcore Gold's Gym, the kind of place where chalk is everywhere and every wall has a mirror and a monster in front of it. He grew up between barbells and posing mirrors, watching his parents prep for shows, soaking in the backstage world of tans, trophies, and veins. By 5 and 6 years old, while most kids were in cartoons and crayons, Bostin was already guest posing at Venice Beach and charity shows, flexing on stage as the muscle kid, raising money for causes like the Ronald McDonald Charity and kids with cancer. He'd pose, then walk into the audience and sell photos for $5, telling people to donate to help sick kids. The cameras loved him, local TV ran specials on him, and he became known as the little kid with a big heart and an even bigger set of biceps. But that early spotlight came with a hidden lesson. Attention equals validation. The more muscle he built, the more crowds cheered. The more shredded he got, the more adults whispered, "He's going to be a star." That feedback loop, growth, praise, more growth, would become the engine that pushed him toward the one thing that changes everything in modern bodybuilding: performance-enhancing drugs. As a teenager, Bostin didn't just get into lifting. He hit the gas. In high school, he went from around 170 pounds to about 230, a transformation his family instantly knew wasn't just chicken and rice. He dove into pro-hormones first, then quickly set his sights on real steroids, planning his first full cycle at just 17. His parents and mentors tried to pull the brakes. His mother literally went through his room with a neighbor, found his stash of steroids, and confiscated them, telling him bluntly, "This isn't the way. You're 16 years old." Doctors warned him that steroids at that age could stunt his growth, wreck his hormones, and kill his natural testosterone before he even reached his full adult potential. And yet, walking out of one doctor's office, he reportedly turned to his dad and said, "You know I'm not going to listen to that doctor." That one sentence explains almost everything that followed. He wasn't stupid. He heard the risks. He just believed he could outsmart them, outwork them, or simply outlast them. The scary part? At first, it kind of worked. By his late teens, Bostin wasn't just big, he was winning. He hired respected prep coach Dave Palumbo around 18, dialed in a show, and walked into a muscle contest event in Culver City to dominate. He won his teen class, his novice class, the novice overall, and even his open class, only losing the overall by a single point, while showing up absolutely shredded. Even if he joked, he still looked like a tiny swimmer next to the monsters. At the same time, he was training people out of his house for $40 an hour, taking on more and more clients, including special needs adults. Everyone who trained with him said the same thing. He was a motivator, a structure giver, the guy who would push you harder than you thought possible while making you feel like you could keep going. From the outside, it looked like the perfect arc: bodybuilding prodigy, competitive success, growing reputation, early business hustle. But there was another curve climbing in the background: the size of his cycles, the side effects on his body, and the pain he was willing to tolerate just to keep growing. Inside bodybuilding, there's always been a dirty secret. At the top level, steroids and other PEDs aren't if, they're how much and how far. For decades, magazines and supplement companies pretended the freak physiques were built mostly on hard work and protein, while the real information on drug use was passed quietly in hardcore gyms, locker rooms, and whispered conversations. By the early 2000s, the internet and then social media started to crack that wall of silence. Forums discussed cycles and code, some YouTubers gave vague, for entertainment-only talks, but almost nobody sat on camera and said, "Here's exactly what I take, how I inject it, and what it's doing to me." In 2013, Bostin Loyd became the guy who did exactly that. He posted a now infamous video where he laid out in detail his full contest prep cycle from A to Z, the exact steroids, the dosages, the schedule, and later took it even further, literally filming himself injecting on camera. That video, around 35 minutes long, exploded. Other channels reposted it, forums argued over it. People either loved his honesty or hated him for destroying the illusion of the sport. Some industry people said he was crazy, that he'd be arrested, banned, or blacklisted. Others called him a whistleblower, the first to say out loud what everyone already knew in private. "Yes, I take this. This is what I do. This is the reality of the sport." He wasn't the only one talking about steroids, but he was the first to make his own body the case study, dosages, side effects, and all. And the internet rewarded him. The more honest he was, the more people watched. The more extreme his cycles, the more jaw-dropping his stories, the more his follower count grew. In a world where radical authenticity is currency, Bostin just cashed in on being brutally, almost uncomfortably real. That radical honesty didn't just make him famous, it made him rich. While many bodybuilders begged supplement companies for sponsorships and free tubs of pre-workout, Bostin flipped the script and built his own ecosystem. He developed a coaching business where people paid him to design their diet, training, and in many cases, drug protocols, drawn to the one guy who wasn't going to sugarcoat what really worked. According to reports and profiles on him, his net worth climbed to around $2 million, driven by multiple income streams. He had a clothing line, a supplement line that did excellent, forum-based sales of various products, online programming, and media work, including writing for 2 bodybuilding magazines and reportedly authoring 3 books before the age of 19. He was described as one of the top most successful bodybuilders in the world, not because of trophies, but because of how effectively he monetized his niche. In the social media era, he became a prototype for the modern fitness anti-hero, controversial, unfiltered, and impossible to ignore. And here's where the paradox kicks in. The same brutal honesty that built his empire also made it nearly impossible for him to back down publicly. The more he embraced being the guy who does crazy experiments and tells you about it, the more pressure there was to keep pushing that edge. Behind the scenes, his body was already flashing red warning lights. Even in his teens, his early pro-hormone and steroid use had wrecked his hormones. He told stories about lactating and being able to literally shoot fluid from his nipple several feet because of severe gland issues, eventually needing surgery to have his glands cut out. His liver and kidney enzymes were flagged as high from a young age, the kind of numbers that would scare a cautious athlete into pulling back. Doctors warned him about stunted growth, long-term endocrine damage, and the risk of killing his natural testosterone production before age 25, when testosterone normally peaks in men. But Bostin wore his risk-taking almost like a badge of honor. He literally tattooed, "Get big or die trying" on his body. And that slogan became the theme of his life. As the years went on, his experimentation escalated. He didn't just run high-dose steroid cycles. He played with growth hormone, insulin, exotic peptides, and even substances that weren't designed for humans at all. One of the most notorious examples, he used a peptide commonly called adipotide, a compound tested in animals like mice and monkeys to kill fat cells, with known links to kidney failure in those studies. There were no human dosing protocols, no long-term safety data, and yet he admitted to using roughly double or triple what average users might experiment with, pinning it into his lower back in an attempt to spot kill fat. Shortly after, he became violently sick, vomiting, bedridden, and eventually discovered he was in full-blown kidney failure. Years later, he would bluntly admit, "I did this to myself with an idiotic experiment, and it finally all caught up to me," while still insisting he didn't regret anything. And adipotide wasn't the only gamble. He tried unregulated tanning and appetite peptides like melanotan, again with no human dosing studies, essentially shooting in the dark with his own body as the lab rat. He even described using iron injections formulated for pigs with anemia, laughing at the label that literally showed a baby pig and dosage instructions for livestock. Then, there were the painkillers and stimulants. Oxycodone crushed, mixed with tap water, and injected intravenously. Injectable ephedrine slammed into his system to light him up for the gym. For years, he'd been anti-recreational drugs. But as his health deteriorated and his ability to use his favorite PEDs was restricted, people close to him said he started numbing the reality with substances he once avoided. At this point, it wasn't just about getting big. It was about addiction, not just to chemicals, but to identity. He once called it an illness he kept trying to fix, but always slipped back into because experimenting was who he was. Eventually, his body couldn't keep pretending this was sustainable. By his late 20s, Bostin's kidneys were destroyed. He developed chronic kidney disease that advanced to stage 5 kidney failure, end-stage renal disease. Stage 5 isn't a bad lab result. It's survival mode. Your kidneys can no longer filter waste effectively, toxins build up, and without dialysis or a transplant, the entire body is under lethal stress. So the next time you scroll past a shredded physique, a full day of eating, or a casual mention of "my stack" in a caption, remember Bostin Loyd. Remember the 6-year-old kid guest posing to raise money for kids with cancer, the 20-something building a $2 million empire off radical transparency, and the 29-year-old man whose kidneys failed and whose aorta tore long before his story should have ended. Because behind every "get big or die trying" slogan, somebody eventually has to find out which half of that sentence comes true. If this story made you think, share it, comment your thoughts, and subscribe for more real stories about fitness, ambition, and the hidden costs of chasing extremes before it's over.